What the story, guys? Just Terry the Chair. Just a little video I want to do. I'm going to see the new Mutants in about half an hour, quarter an hour, 45 minutes, something like this. So I just wanted to give you an idea. Like now it's 5 o'clock. This is for the 5:15 one. So just give me a second. There are all the times that are still left available for the day. I just want to show you what the response is for people going to see it. So this is the one I'm going to go see at 5 to 6. These are those tiny ones I was telling you about that I hate going to because you're paying full whack and you're still getting charged for what's virtually empty. There's another screen out that's the same one as that I'm going to at 5 to 6. This is at 9:15 tonight. That's the last one there. Anyway, the reason I'm doing it is they're only letting 50 people in to these cinemas. So the fact that, you know, it's as full as that, and it doesn't look that great, but you're still talking about virtually full by the COVID standard. So there does seem to be a good bit of demand for the New Mutants for it. This is the second day it's open. It opened yesterday in Ireland. So Sunday is, you know, today. Obviously, this is the second shot for people to get looked at. So maybe word of mouth's going to get around this and might do a little bit better than the critics have been saying. So I'm going to tack this on with my review later on to let you know what the story is. But I just wanted to show you that now, seeing as I was here to show you. What's the story, YouTube? This is Heritage. I'm just back from my viewing of the New Mutants film, and man, I'm pissed. This is a cracking little film. It's a good, solid 8 out of 10. It's a horror-themed actioner. It's, like I said, hour and a half long. You get the character build up in the beginning. You get, you know, a good, strong emotional attachment to the characters in it. Like, I mean, there's some really good stuff in it. And then, like I said, you have the whole action thing for the second half of the film. I really, really enjoyed this, and to see the attacks it's getting by members of the press who, to be brutally honest with you, I can only assume it's because they didn't get to see the thing for free like they usually do, is that they're throwing all the shade at it. Because it's a solid film. There's nothing in here to say that it's the worst X-Men film ever. You know, like certainly not compared to things like Dark Phoenix, for God's sake, or even X-Men 3. This thing actually towers over those films. As per usual, lads, I'll reserve this section to the spoiler-free section. With the picture change, you know, I'm actually going to be talking about spoiler stuff, so you're okay for now. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. You know, like, and it's well acted, it's well shot. There's a lovely pace to it. There's a lovely tone as well. Like, I mean, you can really feel like a kind of a mystery building. All the characters are endearing. I mean, even Illyana, who's supposed to be a bitch in this thing, when you actually find out the stuff that's happened to her when she was a kid, you know, like, I mean, you realise that she's just more damaged than anything else. So the first half of this film is really kind of like a character piece to get to know these individuals. And then like the second half is basically when they come together to try and basically free themselves from the facility they're in and, you know, basically take control of their lives. As a film, it's a hybrid. It's supernaturally themed. So it's not really a horror film, but there's horror elements in it. So if you go in looking at it as more action adventure, you know, like that's probably the best way of viewing it. So I thought it was great. It's perfectly serviceable. It uses all the horror stuff, you know, to the best of its ability. And, it's very effective. I mean, if you look at characters like Rain, I always thought she was a bit kind of weak in the comic books. It's just perfectly well in the screen, and it really does save characters like her. I will say the CGI on the Demon Bear at the end is a bit ropey, but that's probably because it's probably the most expensive effect of the whole thing, and they probably started running out of money at this stage. But I mean, if you can forgive that, because all the way up to then, they've actually done such a good job of building up these characters, building up this world that they're in. And they've done such a good job of building up the character arcs for each of them to get to this stage that it's almost incidental. But yeah, it's a damn shame if this film doesn't do too well in the cinema because of all the nonsense that's been said about it by the professional critics. Because it is not a bad film. It's really good. Is it the best film ever? No, but it's a really good popcorn chomper, and you're really going to enjoy yourself. Like I said, it reminds me like the mid-80s, early 90s films where you just did have a whole lot of films that were an hour and a half long. You only wanted to go in, you wanted to be entertained, you wanted to be taken away to a different world and to leave afterwards. And that's exactly what this film delivers. As I showed in the little bit before my review started in relation to how many people are going for pre-bookings already, I can understand now why there's actually, you know, I'd say near the 50s going in. Like I said, that's the maximum that the cinemas can take. I can understand why it's actually doing really well, because it's a very good film for what's essentially a horror-themed, coming-of-age, you know, teenage adventure flick. Yes, they do kind of mess around with the origins of the characters, and certain characters who are good, for instance, in the comics are actually bad in this, you know, like, but, and like there's also other stuff that they brought in as well. But I mean, it works, and that's all that matters in the end. It really helps the story. And it's even got the confidence to throw nods to the heads to things that inspired elements of the film that's in it. Mainly stuff like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But all in all, this is a solidly entertaining, good fun romp. And I can't, recommend it enough for people. If you just want to get out there and get a bit of superhero action that's a little bit more serious, a little bit more weight to it. Because it does have a good emotional core. And that's what I really enjoy most about this. You care about these characters by the end of it. Which, sadly enough, is not something you see an awful lot of lately. So I give it a good 8 out of 10. Good recommend from me if you're looking forward to this type of film. If you're a fan of the comic books, it's really faithful to them. I was very happy with certain things that happened in it and the way the characters were portrayed. And I think you'll enjoy it too if you're a New Mutants fan from back in the day. So there you go. That's my non-spoiler review over. Everything from now on is going to be spoilers. So if picture will change, it's going to be spoilers from now on. Okay, the film opens up with what looks like an attack on Danny's reservation, where everything's blown up left, right and centre, and she's been grabbed out of bed by her father and, sent into the forest to try and stay while he goes back and help people. You've seen this bit in the trailers if you've watched it, so you're not missing anything new here then. She then wakes up in a facility ran by Dr. Cecilia Reyes, and we find out here that it's a facility for studying mutants and trying to help them come to terms with their powers so that they won't be a threat to other people. At least that's the cover story. It's at this stage she meets the other members of the team, so you're talking about Illyana, you're talking Roberto, Sam and Rain. I'm pleased to say here that they really portray these characters almost exactly like they are in the comic books. Sam is insecure in his abilities, and they did twist him a little bit. In the comic books, he ends up freeing a bunch of miners that ended up getting stuck in a mine collapse. That's what happened when it's still the same storyline before that. Like, he went down the mines to help work with his dad to help feed the family. But in this one, they're saying that he suffered from claustrophobia for some reason or other, and he actually blasted for the first time, and he killed his father and half the crew that were down there. And this is the guilt that's racking at him. And he's basically, on the surface, it looks like he's training to learn to use his powers. Like, that's that scene where he hooks up the cable to himself and he starts blasting around and stuff. But Rain is kind of saying that it actually looks like he's trying to hurt himself too. That I think he might be dropping the field and, ploughing it to the ground deliberately. I did love that she made a nice nod of the head to the constant problem that Sam had in the beginning. That, he's great at blasting, but he's not so good at landing. Bobby's origin is changed a little bit too. In the comics, he just, went sunspot on the pitch when he was playing football for the Olympics or something like that, and just freaked out the entire stadium. That's not what happened here. They're leaning more into his later evolution as a character, where he starts harnessing kind of solar power for like flame and heat. And the story is basically that he burnt his girlfriend to death. Basically, unfortunately, she fell apart in his hands. You only find this out later on in the film. Up to them, he's playing the cocky, womanizing, pretty boy, which is actually great to see. I know some people have been giving out about that, but that's what he is. Rain is the same girl. She is like the quirkish girl from Scotland who suffers from Catholic guilt for being a werewolf, essentially. And they bring in what happened to her with the priest that was looking after her. She's riddled with guilt about stuff like that, but she's pulling together as a character at this stage, and she's really likeable and endearing in the film. You've got Illyana then, who is obviously the complete badass that, like you see in the trailers, but they do a great job. And like I said at the beginning, you think she's just a bitch, but as the film progresses and you see more about her background and what happened to her as a child, you really do start to understand that it's mainly a front to try and keep people away from the constant terror the girl's been in since she's been 7 years of age. So the last character we get to then is Danny. Danny doesn't know what her powers is at this stage, and basically it's no surprise if anybody, because anyone who knows the comic books has twigged at this stage. Her ability is the ability to draw on people's fears and desires and manifest them. Like in the comics it's his illusions, but in this it's reality. She can actually, like for instance, there's a scene where Rain is terrified of running into the priest that branded her when she was a kid, basically. And there's a scene in the showers where she ends up getting branded again, and that's how you see that W that's on her neck in one of the trailers, because it's supposed to stand for witch. I really like the fact that when Rain started to figure out what was going on, she didn't blame Danny for that, because she knew it's all unconscious. It's not something she's trying to do. And it's one of the many things that happens at the facility now that Danny's there. Like, they are being monitored by Cecilia Reyes for Essex, the Basic Exit Corporation. And there's kind of tie-ins a little bit for Logan and Apocalypse, where you see little flashes for stuff that's happened in that. And she's reporting basically back to Nathaniel Essex, but you never see him or anything. It's just always done on the down low. So basically the film is Danny's uncontrollable powers manifesting the fears of the other characters. And this is a way you get a look into their character and their backgrounds and to see what type of people they are. And it works very well. The culmination of all this is that the Essex Corporations decides that Danny's powers are brilliant. They're absolutely delighted with them, but they think Danny herself can't control them. So a kill order comes down. And basically what happened, the whole second half of the film is as a result of Cecilia Reyes trying to euthanize Danny. This is when you pretty much figure out that it was Danny's unconscious fears that devastated her own reservation, that the demon bear is a manifestation of her fears, and in the end of the film, it starts coming back for her. This is where all the action kicks in, and it's enjoyable. Like I said, the CGI is a little bit ropey on the bear, but everything else is grand. I mean, like Ilyana's armor effect looks brilliant. You know, Sam's blasting ability. I was really, really happy with Sunspot because, like I said, they always portray him as like this, like he was in, I think it was Days of Future Past, where he's basically flying around as an equivalent to Sunfire, you know, like being a human flamethrower. In this, they actually do go back to the solid black original Sunspot look, where it's just like the white eyes, and he's just basically laying into the demon bear with punches and battling it with big pews from the church, and it's just class to see. I know they've evolved Bobby's character over the while, but it just, I've always loved that aspect of him first, like that he originally didn't have like flame powers. He was supposed to be just solar powered super strength, so it's just great to actually see it. If I was to say what it kind of feels like tonally, it does feel like a good episode of Buffy. You know, like, I mean, it's got that emotional resonance. It's got that, you know, quirky and some of the, you know, sly humour that's in it. Like, there's a bit where Roberta was hiding in the church, you know, like, and Rain says, what you doing? She says, like, I'm hiding. What you expect? You know, like, I mean, some seriously crazy crap is going down. And like, this is during the period where Ilyana is basically just laying into the demon bear with her soul sword. And it all ties in later on where Sam basically calls out Roberto and tells him to look, just nut up and go for it. Which he does, and like I said, it's immensely enjoyable to see. Like I said, the revelation at this stage that it's Danny that's behind all this isn't really much of a surprise. But to be honest with you, it's not really about the surprise. It's more about how the characters react to stuff like this. Because, for instance, like I said, we've got this big action scene going on with the team taking on the demon bear. But the real action is Rain talking to an unconscious Danny to try and get her to come out of her coma. I don't know whether you could say it the astral plane or just simply a dream world, but it's where Danny has ran to, and she basically needs to come to terms with her own demons in order to basically wake up and deal with the demon bear herself. And that's basically how the film ends. She wakes up and basically tells it to stop. That might sound anticlimactic, but I mean, it is a manifestation of her fears and her terror. And like I said, the bigger it is, the more scared she is. So for her to actually take that on and face it and bring it back down and put it behind her is a character arc in itself. The whole fight pretty much starts with the demon bear because Cecilia Reyes' character uses her force field power to try and kill Danny. You know, like, she has the rest of the team entombed, and she's the one responsible for the force field that's over the entire facility. She ends up getting killed, basically as a result of her attempt to euthanize Danny. So as a result, once the battle's actually finished with the demon bear, the team are free to go. And it ends up really well. I was very happy with the way it all tied up. Like, it's a good, you know, beginning, middle, end. Like, it got in, did its business. It gets you to actually care about the characters, you know, gets the action done, and then it just goes on its merry way. And I'm perfectly happy with this film. Like I said at the beginning, I cannot believe the, you know, attacks it's getting from people in the mainstream media who just seem to hate this out of spite. This film definitely worth paying full whack for. I'm definitely going to get it on DVD when it comes out afterwards. And I'll be honest, it's one I can see myself slapping on to watch again and again in the next couple of years. Solid 8 out of 10. Good bit of entertainment. So there you go, guys. There's my New Mutants review. It's really enjoyable. You know, like, if you're an X-Men fan, I think you'll think it's great. If you're just an ordinary action-adventure fan, I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you're a horror buff, it's not a horror film, but I think you'll be entertained by the horror themes in it and how effectively it helps actually enhance the characters in it. So there you go, guys. Like and subscribe. You share this with who you want. Let us know what you think about it, if you think it's actually merited all the nonsense that's been thrown at it. And see you next time. Bye-bye.